Push start, type of band's cool, but the tent plans. I'm back on my bender rolls for the kicks. They quick to give them 2 cents. Put my circle tight like we glued hands. Like I don't believe in new friends. Trail light, I know the ice in. I drop the song, get a few wins. I crave the comfort in my own skin. Really, I just wanna feel the world spin. If I check, watch me double that. I get it lit, I watch it bubble.
What's up, everybody? How's it going? This your boy, Frankie Fabre with We Are The Brand podcast, presented to you by Fabre Media. And in the studio today, we have a very special guest, Micaela Vargas, right? And the reason why I'm saying that is because just so everybody out there does know, I butchered her name like 3 times. So,
okay.
Yeah, this is, I definitely got it now. She is the founder and principal of MAV Consulting as well. How you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, thank you for coming. Obviously we've known each other maybe about like 4 years.
I'd say, yeah.
About 4 years now, on and off. It's been a while, but I know you're doing a lot of great things, and the things that you do, every time I see, what you got going on social media, the things that you're involved in, I'm like, all right, yeah, she's doing her thing. She's stepping into places, and just trying to be your best. That's one thing that I notice from you and I get from you is you're somebody who likes to operate in excellence. You're somebody who seeks the best out of every opportunity that they get involved with. So
wow, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
That means a lot coming from you. I admire what you do. So
thank you. You're welcome. But yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and let you take over to kind of just introduce a little further, telling people what you do. You're obviously a Chicagoan,
born and raised,
a Chicagoan to Chicago ends, and go ahead.
I love it. Micaela Vargas, named after my grandmother. I always like to say that because I am a representation of her. And, essentially, she proudly went by the name Mika as well. And so, talking a little bit about my name, and it always goes by Micaela or Micaela. Like, they didn't know how to say it. And it took me a while to be really proud of my name and, who I'm named after.
Yeah.
My grandmother means a lot to me. I think I really started to figure out how I introduce myself is really about my family.
Yeah.
And it's wrapped in story. And my grandmother is a matriarch, 10 children. My father being the youngest.
Wow, 10 children.
Yes, Durango. And my father, who I'm really close to, came here when he was 3. He immigrated here with my grandmother. And it's because he had polio. So in Mexico, he found himself around the farm just kind of scooting around on his, didn't know how to walk yet at 3. And so they realized, I wonder if there's something wrong. He needed medical attention. And the whole family, all siblings and aunts and uncles immigrated here to actually the west side of Chicago. And so, I'm very proud of what my grandmother did for my entire family. And she was just a light for everybody. And I feel like it's funny. She passed away 6 months before I was born. So I never got to meet her, but I was born on her birthday. So it really is a representation.
Oh, get out of here.
Yeah. Like they were either going to name me Michael or Micaela. And I turned out to be a girl. So, I feel like I'm really, following her footsteps. She was a very famous baker in Durango and, was anything, jack of all trades. And I really just continue her lineage. That's what I do. So I'm excited excited to kind of share a little bit more about my story, but also, there into my family story.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing even that bit. One thing that I know for certain, especially with who we become in life, has a lot to do with our upbringing, has a lot to do with our roots, our family, our lineage, right? Because it's those same mindsets that actually carry on with us and perspectives that, as a child we share and we begin to perceive life in those ways, So like, growing up in Chicago, let's talk about that. Obviously, your family migrated here. And anybody who has, an immigrant story, when it comes to America, those are some of the hardest working people, hands down, in our country. That pave ways so that way their children and even themselves can have a life that they once never had. And just with that persistence and mindset alone, that's just a beautiful, amazing thing. And that's one of the great things about this country, that we can do and are able to do, despite all the negative things that I'm sure we can bring up alongside that. But so tell me about Chicago, like, you know, born and raised. What was your experience here in the city as you grew up? What are some things that you seen for yourself, that you experienced, that led you to where you're at today?
So I was born and raised in Gage Park, which is on the southwest side of Chicago. So spent my entire childhood up until even past college. And the interesting thing about my family is my mother and father actually were community activists in Pilsen, and my father did so by murals. So he was an artist, and cool. There was a very, very important community center in Pilsen called Casaslan. Mm-hmm. And it was a center point for, you know, back in the 60s and 70s, they really expressed themselves through art, through culture. And Pilsen was a very big center point in Chicago at that time. And interestingly enough, freshman year at college, did an entire research project on all the murals that were in Chicago. And I took my dad, he drove me around the neighborhood, and he told me all about the activists that were basically on these walls, that their lineage and their legacies were left here, and for us to learn from. And so he was Mexican, okay? In Pilsen at that time, Mexican Puerto Ricans didn't get along.
Right.
And one day at the school dance, my mother saw him. And, you know, mind you, my father's been on crutches his entire life. He's post-polio, but he was like cool cat, like
right,
had an afro.
Yeah.
He was like, he had his own fashion line. Like he was doing it. And my mother was very shy, but, you know, she had the courage. She asked him to dance at this like disco.
Yeah.
And he said no. And
bum, bum, bum.
But, you know, testament, like, they obviously, you know, got together 6 months later, there's a kid and there's a marriage. So,
right. There's some
you know,
dancing going
and then,
on.
you know, 3 kids later, I came. So it's just so interesting going back to community, right? It's just how you learn about who you are is really through your community activism. And, you know, it's something that my parents taught me, and it's something that I continued to do in my own way. So I was never really, I always had my own, I was a little bit of rebellious in high school. I grew up in Gage Park primarily, went to Curie High School for the first 2 years. And, you know, I didn't thrive there. I realized, and my parents realized this in sophomore year, I feel like I was very distracted just by trying to fit in, right? Like that's just...
Right, finding yourself, especially in high school. You're very self-centered and
who knows
figuring
themselves
yourself. Right.
at 14, like making life decisions. But I knew a couple of things. You know, I loved music. I loved, you know, I was very outspoken. They always said I'd be a lawyer. I never thought so. I wanted to be, you know, my goal, I always wanted to be the mayor of Chicago. But that, like, ever since I was little, actually, mind you, before that, I wanted to be P. Diddy. Like, I was obsessed with everything he did in the music industry. At that time, this was like, God, I can't even remember. But anyways, then I settled on mayor of Chicago, right? Like P. Diddy, then mayor of Chicago.
Right.
But, you know, I was super distracted, got involved in, I had great friends, but I was just, you know, I liked school, never went to them. Like, never went to classes.
Yeah.
So, you know, just got kind of pulled away. And, you know, a really just seismic moment happened when I was 16. A friend of mine got shot in front of me. And, you know, it was just a moment where my mother had to say, I don't think this is the right environment for her. And my parents made the very tough decision to give up custody of me. And I was able to go live with my aunt and uncle in a different part of the city and thrived in a different high school just because I put my head down and, you know, was able to really kind of focus on myself a little bit more and not fitting in as much, but needed to put my head down. So I worked my way up from a 1.8 GPA to barely making it into college.
Yeah.
Like, I got waitlisted, and thank God, because you ever just have that, like, do-over moment in your life, and
Yes.
You just realize nobody knows me. I got into DePaul.
Yeah. University
on the north side of Chicago. Never really been to the north side, like South Sider, born and raised. Yeah. So I'm like, ooh, okay, no one knows me. I can start over. And man, I thrived. Like, sign me up for every president club, activist thing that I could do, and tried my hardest at the classes and the courses, and I find myself here today.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's an amazing story. And when you break it down, you can see how obviously the needed steps that took place to get you to where you are today, right? In life, you don't necessarily know what's going to happen, but when you look back, you can connect the dots, and it allows you to put things into perspective. Like, if this didn't occur, then I would never be in this particular position.
You would never learn who you are. I mean, like, it's like cutting your teeth, right? There's that old saying that, when you're starting out, all you want is approval. And that's
Right.
what I spent my entire life just craving it. And when I was never enough, all of a sudden you realize, maybe that's not the point. And I started to create an opt-out. And that's when I really started to thrive. Like, I think the past decade of really creating the work that I've been doing through MAV Consulting, I wanted to just create my own business. Like, I got into politics about 23 years old, and I walked into my local elected official's office and asked for a job. And that's kind of like the story and how it all began. But
It's
I
pretty
really,
bold.
I said, hey, here's my resume. I didn't have a job at the time. I actually got an internship at the mayor's office. And that really started my interest in international diplomacy, which is what I got my degree in. And ended up working for the mayor at the time, and realized there's a lot of work to still do in Chicago. I love this city. Why go, through the United Nations or State Department, or go abroad to do this good work? Let me start here. So I went to my local elected official's office, and I grinded it out for like almost 2 years. I was a constituent services. So, I mean, the most thankless job in America, but it's the most needed, right? You pay
Right.
your taxes, you should get a garbage car. You should get your tree trimmed.
Yeah.
You should get great streets.
Let's get these lights fixed.
Right. Like safety, public safety education. Like, that's what people vote on. That's what people care about. They care about their kids being safe and their streets clean, to
So
be
did
honest.
you work closely with like the aldermen? Mm-hmm. Was like a particular ward you were?
Yep. So I was on the south side of Chicago, actually 2 blocks from my house. So, I was in the 14th ward on the south side of Chicago, and, I didn't really know the structure of it. I started working, and, long and behold, from the mayor's office, understanding constituent services and municipal services, realized I'm an advocate for these families in the 14th ward, right? So I really got excited about that, but I really was really passionate about policy and actually making long-term change. And so I ended up getting a job being a director of policy at Cook County. And I worked on, like, honestly, it was a time of my life. I actually didn't know a lick about policy. I didn't know how to do it, how to create it. She gave me the job just because I told her I was scrappy, resourceful, because that's the thing. Like, you go through a time in your life where I had to figure it out in high school, college. I liked where I grew up. I honestly liked what it gave to me. It just gave me a little grit,
Yeah.
gave me a chip on my shoulder. And, I just kind of realized, like, if you put me to a task, if I put my mind to it, like, I could do anything.
Yeah.
So she admired that, and it was my first elected official woman that I had worked for, and really looked up to her and got to work. And I honestly, my first day, I Googled how to write a policy. Like, she
Yeah.
gave me the job as a director of policy. I didn't know. But, I think she admired, kind of my scrappiness. So
Right.
got it together, and we ended up passing great legislations over those next 2.5 years.
Yeah, so with that, I want to address two things. One, I think would be most important, and then we can kind of dive into, some more politics and kind of talk about that. I would like to know what type of policies that, you stood for or stood behind. I think that's important in that particular space. But the mindset of being willing to be resourceful, being, gritty and determined and saying stuff like, whatever I put my mind to, I know I can achieve it. Where did that thought process come from? When was that instilled into you? And how long have you thought that way?
I mean, ever since the first person that ever told me that I couldn't do it, I think, it was really interesting when high school hit and I had my interests, but, the people around me, whether it be the school system or, friends or peers at the time, it's always a nice proponent when you have individuals that don't think you could do it.
Yeah.
But, that should never be your driving force, right? You should always look within and know you can do it. So I think when it actually started, the driving identity of mine is when college hit and I really started coming to my own. And I realized, I was never really good at school. I actually had really severe dyslexia growing up and in grammar school, got through it when some teachers kind of noticed it, and had some support at home, thankfully, because you can't really say that about a lot of people, but
right.
I'm thankful that I had that support. And it never came easy to me, nothing. I don't know, when people are have a knack for things,
Yeah.
or are really kind of good at that's just don't put me in that category. I just don't know why, but I have to work harder at everything. And I don't know if maybe that's the conditioning that came through, through younger years and into college, but I would get obsessed about the process.
Yeah.
It's just the process is what drives me. Sometimes not even the end result, but it's just the learning experience. The learning for me is just, it's a high.
Yeah.
You when you're researching, you're talking, you're using your people around you, your network. That just became a little bit more of a knack for me.
Yeah.
And I realized, maybe some people have the knack for SATs and I have a knack for building relationships.
Right.
So let me use them.
Right. Two different skills for sure. And one thing that you said, I think that's just very important. I kind of want to stay there a little bit, is enjoying the process, right? A lot of times this happens with everybody until they recognize when they achieve something that they want to achieve something else and achieve something else. It's when you're somebody who desires greatness, you're always going to want to level up. You're always going to want to take things to the next level. You're always going to want to find yourself and push in a place where you're continually being pushed, because that's what people who want greatness do. But what they fail to realize is enjoying the process. You got to be obsessed with the process, because it's in that period of time where you begin to develop things within yourself that when you obtain what it is that you want, you can maintain what you have. And that's why a lot of times people who just get something, or they're gifted with a position, or handed something, they lose it very quickly because that needed process wasn't there. And those needed ingredients, just like any recipe, in order to make a full dish, you need all ingredients. It's that process period that you begin to discover things about yourself. You begin to discover things that you've yet to know. So that way, when you're getting to where you're going, now you can get to that place and then look back and have so much more gratitude and have so much more gratefulness for what it is that you've gone through. And you just appreciate things so much more. And then most oftentimes you become a better steward of what it is that you obtained, right? And I just think that's vital, especially for people out there, is recognizing that you need to be obsessed with the process. Don't disrespect the process. When you respect the process, life is so much more easier. And when you respect the process, you're not in a state of comparison, right? Because a lot of times what happens is people compare their process to other people's process to their process. And when you start to compare people's process to your process, you're going to learn very quickly that it's not the same. It's never going to be the same. And that is going to sabotage your moment. It's going to take away what it is that you're supposed to learn and grow in that between time before you get to that time of obtaining what it is that you want. And then when you get there, you're going to learn quickly, like I mentioned, you're going to want to do more. And Yeah, for me, it's been one of those things as well. And I'm just kind of like speaking from experience, I'm definitely somebody who has tons of aspirations and aspire to do great things in life. And it's like I meet these milestones. And I remember before, not respecting the process put me in a place of being impatient. And when you're impatient in any situation, the outcome is never the best outcome. And so as I, begin to grow and learn and become more wise with life and how things truly operate, I begin to find out truly that everything that I need to develop is within that moment, within that time period. The level of patience that people don't have is the reason why they don't acquire what they want, because they fold in that process, because they think it's going to be this instantaneous thing that's just going to occur simply because they want it. And so I just think that, you bringing that up, not to be redundant, but is a big reason why you even have what you have today, is a big reason why you're even at a particular place in your life, is because you respect the process. And when you respect the process, greatness is going to happen.
Well, with that, I think what's most interesting about that in particular, right? It's like dancing on the edge of a sword, because it is a beautiful thing, right? Like this striving for greatness and never feeling like, what's the next thing that I could do? What's the next thing, right? I felt like that through all this past decade of my career, right? I built my business. I was the youngest chief of staff at 26 in Cook County government, right? So writing and doing legislation, being in rooms that people said I shouldn't be in, it was like a drive for me. But, it's like this saying that Confucius says, a happy person wants 10,000 things. A sick person just wants one thing.
Right.
And it's like the unlimited desires, right? I actually saw it on a TikTok. Like, where do we learn things nowadays, right? TikTok. I saw it.
I like how you made me agree with that.
You're like, yeah.
Yeah, that thing.
But no, I mean, isn't it the craziest thing that like this insatiable need to just level up? It can really kind of cut into some happiness.
Absolutely. It can cut into happiness, especially if what it is you think you want is only something that you're seeing on somebody else. You know what I mean? Like, I completely agree with what you're saying. And I would say that then that person didn't find who they should have found in that process. Because at least for me, there's one thing that I identified with in all of these moments where I was going through a process, and it was a greater sense of self-awareness, because I recognized what was really happening wasn't the end result of what was really happening, wasn't the focus on the end result. It was what was happening within myself in that period of time, and, only speaking for myself, and I'm sure many can relate, is it was in that place where I began to even recognize, why am I doing it? I think that when you go through that process and you're true to yourself in the midst of that, you can truly attach yourself to purpose. Because I don't care what process you go through, if that process you're going through it's not rooted in something greater than yourself, it's just easy to give up and fold. Ooh. Right? And so for me, it's like my desire to achieve more isn't found in people's desire to have more, or found in what somebody else did. My desire to achieve even more is because I know that what's inside is there's so much more inside. It's the understanding that the entire universe lives within me and I am within it. You know what I mean? Like God himself is within me. And if that is to be true, and I am to believe that, to not recognize that there is so much more specifically for me and nobody else that has my name attached to it, I want to discover all of that. And I believe that discovery happens in the process, because that's where you have to be humbled. A lot of people, they might get to that successful state and they might give you some false humility, but obviously you have to be humble in that. You have to be humble. The process humbles you. You see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And so for me personally, like I definitely agree. There's some people that they're just always on to the next, always on to the next, always on to the next. And they've never really found like they never rooted themselves in something that was greater than themselves. Therefore, as soon as they were done, it was done.
Well, yeah, because you think about it, right? Like you go off and you're like, "Ooh, I gotta find my purpose," right? But it's like you find your interests, you align, and then you realize, who am I in relation to the world now?
Right.
It's like we're always just thinking, you know, you're never the center of the world.
Right.
We're the main characters in our own mind, right?
In our own
Isn't
world.
it crazy?
Yeah.
When you think about it, I was, it's interesting how our minds are meant to protect ourselves. It's designed to do that. It has an innate ability to just create a reality in which you're always either winning or losing. And so I find it, when I started to really kind of do the work, I've been on just this amazing journey over the past year and a half, spiritual, personal. I mean, every ounce of myself has just been open to, what's something new I can learn, what's something that I can expose myself to that I think could make me a better person.
Yeah.
Not just as a career but as a individual and as a contributor to the community at large.
Right.
And so, yeah, overall, I've just been, figuring out what's been the thing that I can continue to do. Today was actually an amazing day.
Let's talk about it.
Okay. Because I came in here and I was like, Frankie, like, I had a great day today because one of my clients is the Latino caucus of the city of Chicago. And, I get really, really passionate about the, representation of Latinos in the city, because I do think that there are so many times where we're just like, it's not your time, or sit this one out, or here's the scraps, like, go ahead, fight over it.
Right.
And, we've been working a long time. Every 10 years is an epic opportunity for the city to basically redraw the lines and the boundaries of our wards in the city.
Yeah.
And so that's all about economic power, right? Like if you group Latinos into one ward, all of a sudden they can elect a Latino, they can move Latino, based policies, or minority communities can be more empowered. Mm-hmm. And there are complete acts, voting rights acts, that are protecting this action. And so for the past 6 months, we've been working on really kind of getting out our voice and echoing how much representation we should be getting on the city council. And, listen, for all of the experience that I've gained in Chicago politics, and I'm grateful for the fact that I can really cut my teeth on Chicago politics, there is a lack of transparency, and let's just call it what it is, like corruption, right? In the city and in the state, and, politics at large, that just breeds distrust in in people's minds. And so I love being on the back end. I used to be on staff, right? Like, behind the scenes in the city council or Cook County or whatever legislative body. And now I get to be a little bit more behind the scenes as a consultant. And today we filed a referendum. It was the first in 30 years that it's ever been done, that a group of aldermen have gotten together. They actually band together to file this petition to fight for more Latino representation, and actually not just Latinos, minority at whole.
Yeah.
And so anyways, we put that through today, and I was like, I got to go to the 6 o'clock. I got to meet up with Frankie and realize, that's just like, it's a highlight for me. And that's why I do the work that I do, is just making sure that I give back, and that it's just not me, it's me in relation to the world.
Right. Well, first of all, congrats on being a part of that. I'll go ahead
Thank
and
you.
definitely clap up for that. And yeah, just even like your energy, and as soon as you came in, it was great.
I had a great day today.
Yeah, and I'm glad you had a great day the day of the podcast.
Right?
You can allow that to exude, in what you utilize in your speak. So, what I wanted to ask you is, so what do you attach yourself to when it comes to doing policy, and when it comes to pushing forward an agenda? What purpose do you attach yourself into, or what mindset do you find yourself in when in this specific space?
I've given that a lot of thought, right? I try to find, and I think it's important for people to find their golden thread. Like, what's the thing that they end up always coming back to, right? I find if I were to identify with any keywords, right? Coalition builder. I love to find ideas and coalition build around them. I love people. I love connecting with people. I think it is a skill of mine. And so how do I get people really engaged about and excited about the things that I'm excited about? So it's really advocating for those that can't advocate for themselves.
Yeah.
It's, giving people choices that they didn't originally have. And so, we talk about like policy, politics, when it all comes down to it, like I told you earlier, people want safe neighborhoods. They want good schools to send their kids. They want clean streets. They want just basics of life. And when you really put it all together, they don't feel like they have a voice when it comes to the entities that are actually set up to empower them. And so how can I step in and really be an advocate for them?
Yeah. At what point did you find yourself in this space? Like why choose this? I mean, there's so many things you can do. Why this? Why politics? Why involve yourself with this?
You know what it was? When I really think about it, and thank you for making me think critically about it, because, I like to say, oh, I stumbled into it. There are no Latinas doing it. I mean, like, when you really, listen, that's not to say that there's not enough of us. That I actually band together. We have a great group of Latinas that are doing this good work, whether in campaigns, in policy. There's just, we're looking to really be a proponent for other individuals to be included in it. And so, listen, where opportunity is, you go. If you build it, they will come. And I think I started to kind of feel that out a little bit. I'm a big feeler. How do I feel in this moment? Do I feel good? And so realized, actually, this feels really good. I know that I should be doing something in the public space as a public servant. I realized that I have some attributes, and I brought it to the private side, being my own independent boss, because I really have a hard time sitting in an office from 9 to 5.
Yeah.
It's just not where I thrive. And now I tell all my clients, what would you like me to do? Would you like me to be very good at being a value add? Because that's the key in life, right? Is you figure out what is your value to anything that you bring. A project, is it your data analysis? Is it your relationships? Is it your, ability to see things when no one else can see them? I've figured out mine, and I'm a strategy person. Like, get me in a room, put me in a little corner, call me when you need me. Other than that, don't constrain me, because I will just kind of shut down a little bit.
Yeah.
And that's when I was like, I think I need to start my own thing. And then I can choose who to work with and what projects to be on. So it was a little bit more of a calling. But yeah, I appreciate the critical thought on it, because you're right. I mean, I want more people to be involved in it.
So what type of clients do you deal with?
So, my biggest touch point is to make sure that there are elected officials are connected to really impactful and powerful projects in the city, and then vice versa. Very impactful, powerful projects in the city are connected to the elected officials in the city. And so just really making sure, I have a client that is building a data center on the west side of Chicago. Like, unheard of, right? Data centers are usually in the center of nowhere, West Virginia, and no one knows what a data center is, right? It's the future.
Right.
I'm like really into it now. I can talk about dark fiber now all the time. They've been my client for a couple of years now, actually more than that. And when you're talking about Black and brown communities, they've never seen technology the way that a white person has. Like, let's just be honest. And so when I started being a little bit more introduced about the power of the future, right? Like, our consumption on data is only going up.
Right.
Like, pretty soon you'll be hopping in a car with no person, and there will be just advertisements in front of you.
Right.
And it'll be a self-driving car, and you can get to and from where you go, and you don't even have to pay for it now, because all of a sudden the advertisements will pay for it. And all of that is fueled by a data center.
The metaverse.
The metaverse. There's a strategy to all of this. Like, I'm really getting into crypto now, like all of this stuff. NFTs. You know, I haven't gotten there yet because, anyways, but, you know.
We'll talk about it.
We'll talk about it. We all got our opinions on these new, they call them new. They've been around for a few years.
Yeah.
What was Uber back in 2010? Like, no one knew about it, but all of a sudden everyone's using and jumping in a car,
right.
but they don't know the person, right?
Right.
There was some concerns about that in the very beginning.
Yeah, like what idiot's going to put their daughter in a car with a stranger? Well, we are, because we do it all the time.
That's why early adopters are so important, right?
100%. And that's why NFTs are important.
Exactly. You know, listen, we can sit down and have a conversation, but, and I do think that, anyway, we can get back to that.
I mean, you can finish your thought. If you like, because you were talking about the data center built on the west side.
So we're building a certificate program to train individuals in and around the west side, and I'm advocating for the south side too, but to train them on how to work in data centers, how to be involved, what is, you know, network mapping, what's dark fiber, what's all these things that are important to young people's future.
Right.
And prepare them for pipeline. Like, that's the thing. There is no pipeline for these things.
Right.
So we're just trying to create the portal for them to be successful.
And that's important.
Yeah, and that's important. Yeah, but, you know, that's another client, right? So impactful, powerful project. Listen, in the city of Chicago, you're going to need elected officials. You're going to need community support.
Right.
You know, what are all the local nonprofits doing, and how can we bring them into our process?
Right.
I just like to think, I like to network map. I like to look at things high level. You know, how do we not recreate the wheel? I feel like there's a lot of people that just are starting new things, and there's already great grants that are out there to support them. So, you know, just connecting the dots. I just like to sit back and just be behind the scenes and connect the dots.
Yeah.
To just empowerful. I combined those two words. Empowerful projects. Impact and empowerful. Jesus. You know.
Empowerful.
Empowerful.
Well, it sounds like a word.
Things going
use.
on in the city.
That's a T-shirt right there.
Go ahead.
Empowerful.
Fabre Media.
Presented by Fabre Media. Sponsored by Micaela. No, definitely. And I think that's really cool. So ultimately what you do is you basically connect the dots for people. This is a elected official or somebody in a political position that has some type of influence and authority within that city. And then here is this non-for-profit or business of some sort that is doing something great. And then obviously this particular thing that they're doing, if they had an elected official or somebody in a political place of power with influence, tying the two together, make a cohesive experience. And there's a lot of great things that happen from there.
Absolutely.
So you're the person that connects that, like you were mentioning, the networking, connecting people, which is very much a skill. 100%. Being able to network with people, and there's always those people that it's like they're just connected to everybody. Like one of my guys, Reno, he just always knows how to connect to somebody. Like that's one of his skills. It's like it's a great skill. If something needs to happen, he'll get it done, and in a nick of time. Like
right.
So that's definitely that's very valuable, actually.
Well, I mean, you can create entire businesses off of it. It's a service industry in the sense that, what value do you bring to a client? What value do you bring to a project?
Right.
And how do you measure that as success, right? And so I've been able for the past 3.5 years to figure out, here's a value add. Actually, there's a new grant that's coming out of the city of Chicago or the state of Illinois that'll support that project. Let's figure out how to apply for it. Let's There's this West Side community group that's really interested, actually already has a job resource center and is willing to put in, individuals looking for a job into this program. So, I just love people.
Yeah.
You do work with people. People just, realize they start a meeting and don't say good morning, or you just are all about the details, right? There are people like that are needed in the world.
Yeah.
And then there are people that, make you feel something.
Right.
I just want to be one of those on the latter side. And I think everyone serves a purpose.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Everybody definitely serves a purpose. With all these things that you're involved in, and at some point we could definitely talk about NFTs. We'll see if we circle back about those non-fungible tokens. Where does your faith lie in all of this? Because I know you mentioned, and because we didn't really dive too deep into the spiritual journey that you're currently on and have gone through. What and where was this experience to get you to where you're at today on a spiritual level?
So, I think many years ago, when I told myself, like, what's something that I'd like to say to my younger self is that I don't want to live separate from God anymore. And I think that really kind of hit home for me, because, I've been involved, and I think, I've been very faith driven. Everything that I do is really kind of coordinated around, who I think I am supposed to be on this earth, right? Like, it's just not about Micaela Vargas and everything that I can, potentially bring to the table. It's just more than that. And so, this spiritual journey, if you're stepping back about all of the people that are walking this earth and haven't really kind of done the work on themselves, I didn't want to be that person starting a year and a half ago. So, like, I had the foundation of all the faith and the beyond myself, right? Like, there was no more ego-driven decisions. And so, I really started to dive into the work that I was doing. And, I was really I started doing therapy in particular. And that really kind of opened up a whole new world for me about...
Like, you went to therapy?
Oh, yeah. So
Yeah.
I do weekly therapy.
Good.
And, thank God for COVID, really kind of opening my eyes to even virtual therapy on the phone and digital. Because, you get bogged down. You're like, oh, I can't go see them. But it's really helped me to understand all the weight that I was holding. Every decision that I was making was laced with childhood trauma and with continued just expression of just repressed emotion. And so, just being in and out of just, abusive relationships in different types of way, mental, emotional, but also really kind of looking at what am I doing? How am I showing up in the world, right? In these relationships. And so I started really kind of even exploring plant medicine, and went to Costa Rica recently and had a profound experience, just really kind of exploring myself, right? They say about plant medicine in particular that, one night of plant medicine is like 10 years of therapy. Like, yes, it was for me. Mm-hmm. But there's a lot of work to still do.
Right.
And you should really kind of couple that with, all the therapy and other things. But it opened my eyes, like, to just who I was trying to be. This is how I would sum it up in one sentence. The just being hurt, the hurt woman, the pain of being a hurt woman is just as painful as growth. Just choose the growth.
Right.
And that's what this journey has really meant for me, and my faith and everything planted back to just give it up all to God. Like, I just want to do good, be good here on this earth. I have purpose. I lead with purpose, and I have a clear mind that isn't just laced with trauma.
Right. No, that's beautiful. And it's needed. A lot of us, and many of us, we deal with so much trauma from a past life, you know,
Yeah.
and we deal with so much trauma from our childhood and things that we've gone through. And as life carries on, it's easy to be distracted. It's easy to continue to move and not examine yourself to a point where you're dealing with those things that are deeply rooted in you, that affect your everyday decisions, that are really triggers, that put you in particular places that you're always asking yourself, why am I always finding myself in the same place over and
Vicious
over?
cycles.
100%. These are cycles that, in order to fully detach yourself from that, one of the things that you said, and I think is super important, is you surrendered. And when you surrender from those things, because that's a deliberate action, right? That takes you to humble yourself. That places you in a position to say, all my fears, they have no control no more. All my wants, no control no more. Everything that you identify yourself with, that you thought you identified yourself with, and you just surrender and release it. And then find that thing, which is really you, right? The core of it, the spiritual thing, the thumbprint of the universe, right? The thumbprint of God that's really there. That's the true identity. And then now grow from that space and grow from that place. It's life-changing. But in order to get there, we have to pull these layers back. And it's a painful process, like you said. Either I'm going to allow the pain of my trauma to continue as being a hurt woman, or I'm going to allow this growing to be the pain I deal with.
It's uncomfortable either way.
Right. It's going to be uncomfortable either
Might
way.
as well.
Right.
Grow.
Might as well. Growth. But people are afraid of that. And it's not that they're just naturally afraid of that. What they're afraid of is the things that they need to do to deal with that. Number one, being accountable. Taking a sense of accountability for something that you don't think is even your fault. Right? These traumas and things that we deal with and we're going through, it's hard to point those things out when we don't even think that it's something that we need to be accountable for. Right? It was daddy's fault, mommy's fault, ex's fault, job's fault, boss's fault, brother, sister, whoever. Therefore, they need to be accountable. But the reality of that is, guess what? They are responsible for them. And for whatever reason, whatever encounter or any situation that happened between all of you has affected you internally to a point where it's created trauma. And now you can't keep a relationship and you can't keep a job and you aren't disciplined enough to continue to move forward, knowing damn well that you're so skilled and capable of doing that, but something keeps pushing you back. And it's recognizing that thing in itself that you have to say, you know what? Yes, I may not have been the person who inflicted that thing on me when I was a child or even in my early adulthood, right? But it is now my responsibility to figure out how to handle this because it's going to continue to carry on with me.
Oh.
And it's in that place where growth happens. And it's just beautiful to hear what you're saying because a lot of people need that. We need that as a society, as a people. Is we need to find ourselves in a place to surrender it all to where forget the opinions, forget the statistics, forget what you thought was right. Let's put all that aside and let's just go a little deeper. What do you hear?
And what do you want to hear and what do you want to break, right? I didn't want to continue anymore. It was like I said, right? Like I was losing myself. I didn't feel in touch with my body, with my soul, with my mind. I didn't know if I actually had an opinion anymore. Like I was getting lost in the world. And that's because you can't go within, talk to your source or whoever,
Right.
You communicate with. It's just really kind of deep. And it's funny, ayahuasca in general, in particular, I mean, I did multiple ceremonies through it with like a very indigenous ceremony. It was beautiful. It was something I've never experienced before. And I didn't actually get the point until the third ceremony that I was supposed to surrender. Like, I'm the most controlled person. Everything you see on me is articulated, is meticulous. You're meant to see what I mean for you to see. Like,
Right.
it started I started to not even know I was getting confused between the mask that I was showing you and who I really was, because I was so good at just doing it.
Right.
And so when I went there, I was bummed because I didn't figure it out till kind of later in the process. But the journey and even figuring out how to surrender, once I finally did, because like I said earlier, our minds are meant to just create a reality that is either in the negative or in the positive. And I was so scared, and all my trauma was coming up. I didn't know how to process it. And something I had told myself beforehand, that I always kept grounded, because it wasn't a pleasant experience. Like, people talk about, like, there's the psychedelics and all that other stuff. Like, this is my first plant medicine that I've ever really kind of experienced with. And people are always like, geez, you really jumped to ayahuasca. But it's because I felt it, like, the moment I heard it, Frankie, like, I booked the trip the same day I heard about it. I felt so drawn to whatever that experience was. It was calling me. I went to Costa Rica on like a hiatus. It was around my 31st birthday. And I realized, like, no. Like, it was like something calling in my ear, like, you need this. And boy, did I ever, because I feel like, man, I just, like, lighter. I just broke some chains.
Yeah.
And honestly, it was the scariest thing I've ever done. It was the most painful thing I've ever done. Just because you have a mirror and you're looking at yourself for who you really are. Do you like who you see?
No, is this an actual mirror?
No.
Oh.
No, it's like like a theoretical one.
Okay.
I didn't like who I saw.
Yeah.
And when you actually experience it, it's very unpleasant. Because we tell ourselves lies every day.
Right.
And we say, oh, no. I was actually doing the opposite. I had a very, like, low self-worth. And I was doing all these other things that people didn't actually realize. Like, wow, she's, like, cheering me on, thinking, you're great, you're doing this. And I never saw it. I never connected the dots.
Right.
And so I would sit in a hammock in Costa Rica, and I'd see these birds. And I don't like birds. I don't know. One bit me on my nose one time. It's a long story. And so I've always had an aversion to birds. And I started seeing them just way more clear. And one night in ceremony, I saw myself transform into, an eagle. And I realized, like, I was told later, eagles go out into the mountain every so many years and just take their feathers off and just completely transform. And then they go down and they relive life. And so I just started really kind of connecting more with nature. I was so disconnected. Another animal that came to me during the ceremony that I was really connected to was a black jaguar. And I didn't know what it was. It was just kind of like a figure. And, it just is like strength kind of within me that I never knew. And I really started to relive some trauma and replace it with more stronger attributes that I really should hold within myself. So, yeah, it was like I said, profound experience for me.
And when did you go? When was this?
Like a few months ago.
Yeah.
What is it, November? It's December now, so end of August into September.
All right, so
It
recent.
Oh, man. It was crazy. I have so many, like, actual stories about that, but, it's not for everybody.
Right.
It really isn't. Like, it's not, you know, everyone has their own journey. And if you're called to do it, then I would definitely say that's for a reason. But you got to be so ready. And it's not vacation. So.
Right. Dealing with those deeply rooted things, it's never a vacation.
No, not at all. But, you know, listen, all the work that I have done, I attract better things.
Right.
When you start to shed the negative thinking and the limiting beliefs, right? I truly didn't believe that I was actually worth much. So I'm attracting things, people, circumstances, even client, you know, name it, that matched my energy.
Right.
And no more.
You know, I want to touch on that because the moment I realized that particular thing, I want to say it was maybe about 6 years ago. I came to the understanding that you can't play yourself. At the end of the day, your subconscious mind, which is the thing that's going to create a majority of your choices and decisions, right? Because we're only conscious about our choices and decisions a small percentage of the time. It's our subconscious mind, the thing that's been programmed, the thing that is rooted in all of these issues, the thing that lingers in the background of all that trauma that we're dealing with, right? Is in your subconscious mind. You can say out your mouth the greatest things you want in that conscious moment, but you can't play your subconscious mind. If you really don't believe that, you can put on a facade. You can say something that sounds great in the moment, but if you don't truly believe the things that you're saying, if you don't truly believe the image that you're showing, it's going to hold no true purpose, and you're going to find yourself attracting the wrong things. But most importantly, what happens is people, they say the great things, right? But look closely at what does attract to them. Because it's that thing that's truly rooted in that person, right? Like a lot of times for myself, even like within my business, sometimes I'm like, damn, like, how did I even pick up like this huge client? How are we doing things internationally? Like, how are we? And it's a real question that I ask myself sometimes. It's not like this false, like these false questions, but I recognized, and I remember telling myself, that's because I've developed my subconscious mind to act out in those ways and do things within those manners that I don't even have to consciously make a decision to do. I've built a habitual system within myself. I've created a mindset within myself of what I want to attract. And it comes to me, and it's just drawn to me, and it's just drawn to me. Like even within business, like, you know, we do, you know, branding and media development, you know, everything from the conceptualizing of a concept to the creation of the content to the distribution of the content, you know, through, you know, media buy and ads and stuff like that. But it's crazy to think that we've yet to even fully advertise ourselves. Like, It's been the attraction. It's been a thing that's just, I've been doing it for so long, you know, just for anybody out there, don't get it twisted. It's not like I just started this yesterday. I've been at this for like 10 years now, right? And I've learned and grown, and I've failed in my first agency, but, you know, here we are. Successful people do what unsuccessful people aren't willing to do, right? And one of those things is just continue to push through and continue to persevere. But in order to do that truly, it's super important to go and to develop those things that you were speaking about, is really pulling those layers back. Who are you trying to be? Like, who are you really trying to be? Are you trying to be something that you see somebody else being, you think that looks good? So you're like, yo, it looks good on them, so it has to look good on me in some way. This must be something that I want to attract myself to because it just looks great. And I feel like that's the reason why people don't get what they want in life, is because they think that they actually want is really what their big sister maybe wanted. Or the thing that they actually are attaching themselves to is something that they glorified in a video that they seen at 10 years old or something, right? It's like we find ourselves and we define ourselves through the opinions of people, through the media, through all these other different avenues, and we don't find enough time. And it's normal, especially in Western culture. We're distracted 24/7. 24/7 we're distracted. So at what point can we actually be in a quiet, still space where we can really talk to who we are and talk to the spirit inside of us and have a real conversation? When's the last time, somebody's done that? It's very hard to do that when you have so many distractions in the world and you're constantly worried about finances and you're constantly worried about, who likes me and who doesn't like me and your status and all these different things. And don't get it twisted. In the culture that we live in, those things matter to a point. But I can promise you that those things will matter a lot less when you find who you are. And then when you begin to develop from a place that's raw and real, everything else will just find itself.
Well, I think that to that point, it's just as important to figure out what you stand for,
Right.
and figure out what you don't stand for,
Yeah.
right? With that, I think, I learned something from a past client of mine. I'm going to shout them out too, Bonfire.
Bonfire, what up?
Something called the pointy point of view.
What is that? Say that again.
The pointy point of view.
The pointy point of view.
Yes. The one of the founders had created it and was teaching it. It was a women talent accelerator, and a lot of the things that I started creating around brand, right? Because my company is me. I am the brand. Like, I have to figure out.
We are the brand.
We are the brand podcast. It's important to know what you don't stand for, as it is as important to know what you do, and you have to provide people an opt-out. I feel like I never got that for the majority of my career because I wanted everyone to opt in. Like, I was essentially just trying to get subscribers, like not physical ones or actual tangible ones, but what do you want to hear? What can I give you? How can I tailor it to exactly what you need? You can't be for everyone.
Absolutely not.
And when I started figuring that out, all of a sudden you're starting to really, the point of the pointy point of view is that you're direct, you're specific. People opt in, they get it. And you don't want people that opt out, right? Like, you want to separate and that's what is very poignant in society nowadays, is pointy things, right? And so for you to incorporate that as a brand, as an individual, even how you show up on something as simple as social media, how you show up in a room.
Right.
I honestly, everything I do now is specific. It's not general anymore. I'm like, I care about education for all, or, Latino, I'm very specific about exactly what I'm passionate about. If you like it, come with me. If you don't, that's okay.
Right. It's also okay.
And that's just when you're thinking about creating a brand, that's just, now it's bare minimum for me. It's the first thing I think about.
No, that's important. And I've said this on multiple podcasts, but I think it resonates with what you're saying now, is you don't need everybody, you need the right bodies. Who cares about obtaining everybody? That's not how you build brand loyalty. That's one of the things that, even with my clients, you have to figure out what your demographic is, and you have to figure out what that conversation sounds like. What dialogue are you approaching? What conversation are you trying to have? What vernacular do you need to use? How are they going to connect to those things that you're bringing out? Because you're trying to have a conversation, you're telling a story, and you're connecting. Ultimately, you want to build brand loyalty, and in order to do so, you have to be specific. That's why data is super important, right? The more data we have, the more metrics we have to measure against what it is that we're doing. So, for example, on the branding side of things, is if we create a piece of content and we put it out, we'll do A/B testing, right? So we have this piece of content, we have this piece of content. The intentions and purpose behind it is to figure out what content better resonates with the audience that we want to have a conversation with. And just like you said, you want the people who opt in, but they want to stay opt in. you know, and obviously you can't win everybody, and that's fine. But the
Hit that
more,
unsubscribe.
right, unsubscribe. By the way, make sure you guys subscribe to the channel, like the
Subscribe
video,
here.
you know, and
We didn't
go ahead
mean
and
for
comment
here.
in there. But like what you said, you know, having people who are dedicated, having people who can connect to the vision is paramount.
Because then you're just building energy together. It's just, honestly, a beautiful thing when you get really like you see something out in the ether and you're like, ooh, that hits me. Like, I kind of like that. And then you
Right.
start exploring a little bit more. And then you're all of a sudden talking to, you send a little message to the, founder and you say, I would like to get involved. Or it's just, that's the positivity that we need to continue to breathe. And I just kind of now start to kind of, all of a sudden, when I started doing this, the people that weren't for me just were bouncing off of me on their own. I didn't even have to do anything. I just started to just exist more in my own, and it was a kind of a beautiful thing that I didn't have to work on.
Yeah, no, that's super dope, and I'm sure we could even like dive into, maybe we could save it for like a part 2 talking about business, because I definitely want to hear more about, you know, the dark fiber and there's different things like that. I think that's important. It's the future. Maybe we can.
Are you into crypto?
Yes, absolutely. I've been involved in crypto since 2014.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so
It's just so important. I think, listen, the days of wrapping up your life savings in a home and a property that, isn't a liquid asset and gives you potential profits in a few years' time or even decades, right? If you keep it in a single family home, or just over. Those are the days of our parents.
right.
And I just, people didn't think that when Facebook was around, didn't hit. When Uber wasn't around, it didn't hit. And then all of a sudden, everyone's using it and it's adopted.
Right. What's
widely.
the Staples Center is going to be changed to
Oh, yeah.
crypto.com, right?
Right, exactly.
I mean, come on. The
It's-
world is not just falsely buying into an idea that they don't want, that's not going to have longevity. And even for people out there, especially if they're entrepreneurs, one of the things that I know for me that wasn't taught when I was young or in schools, especially in communities of color, is being financially literate. And even now, I don't even know anybody people that I meet now who are younger and they're coming up, they know nothing about finance. And I think it's just super important, even like for entrepreneurs, few things, investing into, S&P 500, investing in having a Roth IRA, for later, for when you retire. Like, you could be an entrepreneur, you don't got no retirement plan or anything that you have
Trust
for
me,
you.
taxes hurt.
Right.
Like, you need to put
Right.
other assets away.
Absolutely. Cryptocurrency, definitely NFTs. That's something that recently, that I'm actually going to be attempting to do, outside of just all of my research, and, been listening to it for, say, about maybe a year and a half now. But it's definitely catching fire. I mean, we're probably
Oh, for sure.
a decade out before it's probably too late for people. Right now, we're still on the beginning stages. Even Nike, they took patents out on all their digital designs, and when you buy Nikes, you get an NFT, and clearly you could take that NFT to the
All the
metaverse.
collectibles, absolutely.
Right. What's this girl? She's 12 years old. She made a digital giraffes or something like that.
Oh,
Sold it
geez.
for $4 million.
Right. Because kids on like YouTube are making $1 million opening toys.
Right, opening toys.
I mean, like, if this is not the age of opportunity,
Right.
and that's the thing, like, if people want to talk about, oh, crypto, like that time has passed, or like maybe that it's still not in. No, I'm telling you, like, it's gonna hit, and it's only continuing to grow. It's only the beginning. People don't think about it from the 40,000 feet. They feel that they're just like, oh, this has been around a while. No need to invest now. Like,
Right.
absolutely
Yeah.
not.
Crypto is still
Just babies.
right. I mean, it was made to be worth what one coin is supposed to be worth $1 million. I think that's what it was made for. So I mean, we're only at like 56,000 at the moment. I think as of today, it dropped. but because everything going on with China and stuff like that,
Absolutely.
that has a big effect on it. But that's definitely one thing that I would want to tell people who are in business or who are going into business is take the time to really understand your financials and get into a place of financial literacy, because you can't be an entrepreneur forever, especially if you're in a service space. And what I mean by that is you can't be I can't think to myself, yeah, I'm going to be 60 years old and hey, let me go shoot some videos. Like, it just doesn't even compute. Like, that'd be cool maybe if I'm a director.
The coolest thing that I remember hearing recently, that I'll always continue to think about as you get older, never depend on your body, you depend on your mind.
Right.
And you have to continue to invest in it, just like anything else, because that's the thing that'll never fail you.
Right.
I mean, Alzheimer's is a thing, but ultimately, you're not
Right.
over here like doing the same things you were doing when you were 20 in your 30s, out there grinding as much as you are now. Then you want your money to work for you.
100%.
Yeah, I'm gonna be on a beach, chilling.
Big chilling on the beaches. Well, with that being said as well, you've obviously traveled a lot of places.
It's like a high. I love it.
How many places have you traveled to?
I think I'm touching 30 countries. I haven't done, COVID really kind of messed me up, just because for a while there, maybe it was a little bit unhealthy, like where I just it was almost like cabin fever. I couldn't be sitting in one city at a time for like more than a month and a half. But, I take a lot of joy in, not only traveling, but, taking people to travel with me. My parents have never really kind of experienced the outside world. So like, I just get so much joy. I want to share it with them. But when I was 5 years old, I started studying Japanese, and I was lucky. I didn't think I was lucky at 5 years old because I wanted to learn Spanish, but I started learning Japanese because my mother enrolled me late into school, and that was the only language left. And it turned out to be the biggest blessing of my life. It honestly shaped the reason why I'm even interested in international diplomacy. Growing up in the South Side of Chicago, I really only knew one culture.
Yeah.
And, I was learning how to make sushi when I was like 6. They were teaching us how to this is how you lick the seaweed. And like, it was just.
Can you make sushi now though?
I just go and buy it.
Facts.
No, but
I've never made homemade sushi. I was just curious.
I did a sushi making class one time. I highly recommend it. But, the Japanese culture was just so otherworldly than mine at that time, being very young and malleable.
Yeah.
And I just got really into it. And so, obviously I carried that through from 5 to about 13, picked it back up in college, studied abroad there, and realized, I think I want to do this permanently. Ended up going into more city politics. But, my ultimate goal is to negotiate international treaties for the United Nations. Like, that would be, I see it in my mind. I actually heard it on a podcast, and it was on an Adam Grant podcast, and he was, interviewing some woman, and she was chosen to be the international negotiator for the Paris Treaty. And my ears perked up. And this is funny, I was actually in the shower. Yes, I listened to podcasts in the shower. And I was washing my hair. And I'm like, this is for me. And I was obsessed. I've listened to that podcast probably 15 times. And when I talk about it, I get so excited because I could visualize myself. Yeah. And she would take her children. This is how I want to live my life. I want to have a family. It is a overarching goal of mine. It's always been, I want to be a mother. I want to take my children, expose them to other cultures, other languages, have them see, part of what I do, what, their father does, in actual tangible life, right. Life lessons. I'll never forget, I was on a flight to Colombia, and I was in between. It was, I was in the aisle. It was a a wife and 2 sons, another son right next to me, and then the father. And they were like nomads. Like they just traveled the world together as a family, and they unschooled their children. So meaning they didn't have, formal homeschooling, but they learned by the oldest son managed the money. So he would always like exchange money and do all that stuff. They read books. They just traveled and they learned by doing. And, listen, I don't want to go that extreme because I love, I want a horse ranch and, a beach house, but I can have it all. Why not? And so I saw myself I just could see, like I instantly was transported and I never left it. And from that point on, like it's on my vision board every day. Like you'll see me negotiating these treaties.
Well, make sure you negotiate some good treaties.
Yes, and I will shout out Fabre Media when on the
do.
stage of the United Nations.
Hey, do not make no promises you can't keep because this is going to be on the internet forever.
I promise.
Okay. You guys heard it here first. She promised. No doubt. Hey, well, we've talked about so much, and I truly feel like you've been able to lay it all out on the table and really just share your heart. And I believe everything that you've said because it just felt real. The energy was real. And you can see what's really inside of you just by how you explain particular things. And I think it's a beautiful thing. I think you're an amazing person, and I'm glad that, you took the time to come on today's podcast. I'm sure there's somebody out there that is going to be able to resonate with who you are and your experience, right? Because all of our experiences are different. And it's the story that we're able to tell that creates a change in the lives that we live and those who we get to impact. And, I'm believing that not only will this impact people who listen and who view it, but you'll be able to look at this podcast in 2 years, in 5 years, in 10 years as history being written or being recorded, and you get to see it for yourself. And, I pray and believe that all the things that you've even mentioned now, will come to pass, and if not even better and even more than you could even imagine. So, yeah.
Wow. I appreciate you so much. Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, absolutely. And before we get off, you can look at this camera right here and let people know where they can connect with you at. If they want to learn more about your story, who you are, your consulting business, you can let them know.
Yeah. So you can connect with me a little bit more on social media, Instagram at Ella Alba. It's ELAALBA.
All right. Definitely. I appreciate it. And everybody out there who is watching, listen, I think we've had enough podcasts for you to take your time to smash the like button, subscribe. I mean, at this point, if you're not subscribed to the channel, I don't know what else to tell you. You can follow us and check us out on all social media platforms, Instagram. We Are The Brand Podcast, Frankie Fabre, Fabre Media. Go ahead and follow all of those. You can get different content from different things on each one of these platforms. And listen, let's continue the dialogue. If you have anything that you want to talk about, even related to this show, or maybe questions you want to ask her, let us know. Put it in the comment section. And if you feel like there's some things in here that were really valuable to you and you feel we're able to just give you perspective that, you haven't seen or haven't heard or you needed to hear, and you feel could help somebody who's around you, push it forward, put it forward. Let people also experience those things. It's something for us to share. And that's the importance of these shows is to impact people. And until then, you guys take care. Peace.